Did you know that on the Galaxy S24 Ultra, you can substantially improve low-light video performance, create 24-hour time lapses from a single image, or erase anything, including shadows from your pictures? If not, I guarantee you're using less than 10% of what the S24 Ultra cameras are capable of. And I'm going to prove it with over 50 unknown camera features that will unlock the full potential of your phone. If you swipe up on a landscape photo in the Gallery app, you may see this option here called 24-hour time lapse. And if you tap this, the Galaxy S24 Ultra will automatically create a 24-hour time lapse from a still photo. If you have motion photos enabled by tapping this icon here, then you take a photo of something like waves crashing in, you can actually swipe up on that photo and you'll be given the option to create a long exposure from that photo. And that allows you to add cool things like a cloud effect to moving water. You can then tap View Long Exposure at the bottom to see an animation of the long exposure. And if you tap Save as Copy, you'll keep both the original and the long exposure version of the photo. If you have a black and white photo on your phone, regardless of whether or not the picture was taken with the Galaxy S24 Ultra, you can swipe up on the photo, and you get an option here called Colorize. And if you tap that, your S24 Ultra is going to analyze the photo and add all the color back in. And as you can see, it does a pretty impressive job of this. And it even works for incredibly old photos as well. There's a feature that takes your video recordings from being super dark like this to super bright like this. To enable this, jump into the camera app, then tap Settings, then tap Auto FPS, and make sure it's enabled for either 30 FPS or 30 and 60 FPS videos. This will automatically reduce the frame rate when filming in dark environments to help you get a brighter video. If you took a picture of something and want to remove either the people or objects from the image, just tap the Edit icon, then tap this grid icon, then tap Object Eraser, then you can either circle or tap the objects you want to erase, and if something is missed, you can just zoom in and tap the part that was missed, then tap Erase, and all the objects will be removed. If you tried to get a picture of something and ended up getting your shadow covering the image, you can actually just swipe up on that image, and you should see an option here called Erase Shadows. If you tap this, your phone will automatically remove the shadow. If you ever take a picture through glass, you may see a bunch of reflections. Well, if you just swipe up on that photo, you may see an option pop up called Erase Reflections, and if you tap that, your phone will automatically analyze the photo and erase all the reflections. If you don't see the Erase Reflections option, just swipe down, tap the pencil icon, tap the grid icon in the bottom right, tap Object Eraser, then tap Erase Reflections here. There's a hidden portrait effect that's only available when taking a portrait photo with the rear-facing camera under specific lighting conditions. Specifically, the photo needs to have a bunch of small, bright areas in the background. Once you have that type of portrait photo taken with the rear-facing camera, you can swipe up on the photo, then tap the background effect option, and you'll see a new option here called Artistic. And what this does is add an artistic effect to all the little bright areas. You can even do something like changing those little bright areas into little planes, music notes, and more. Speaking of portrait effects, one of my favorite is called Studio, and if you tap this icon on the right side, you can increase the intensity of it and drag this dot around to increase brightness on that side of the photo. So this works great for brightening up dark parts of your face. If you want to get even better night mode shots and you have pretty steady hands or a tripod, you can tap the exposure time, then switch that to max to get up to a 25-second exposure depending on how steadily you hold the phone and how dark the scene is. This will even fix the smearing that occurs in exceptionally dark areas of the photo. You can take incredible portrait photos at night by tapping the moon icon while you're in portrait mode in a dark environment. Your phone will take a long exposure photo and apply the blur effect for great portrait shots even in the dark. This also works for the front-facing camera, and the screen will even light up to add more light to your face for the photo. The end result is a much brighter portrait photo. If you ever see something and you wonder what it is or why it's there, you can actually just open up your camera app, aim your camera at the object, and hold the home button for a second. Then you can just tap the object, and it'll tell you exactly what it is, and you get some more information about why it's there. If you're ever traveling abroad and need to quickly translate some text, all you have to do is tap the More menu, then tap Bixby Vision, and make sure you're on the Translate option, and all the text will be translated in real time. And if you use the text option, you'll be able to extract any text that your camera is pointed at, which would be good for copying a coupon code into a web browser. And if you aim the camera at things like a phone number, address, email, or website, you'll get shortcuts related to the text. If you switch to the Discover tab, Bixby will try to find a similar item on Pinterest. But honestly, the circle to search feature that I showed you guys earlier works way better for this kind of stuff because it searches through all of Google. If you bring your camera close to get a macro photo, you'll see this icon pop up, and if you tap this, you'll turn on something called a Focus Enhancer, which allows you to get much, much closer to the object. So much so that the Galaxy S24 Ultra can take some absolutely incredible macro photos. When you're in video mode, you'll see an icon in the upper right corner, and if you tap that icon, you'll enable something called auto framing mode, which will automatically track you as you walk around, and it'll zoom in and out accordingly. This is great if you're doing something like cooking for a YouTube channel, or maybe if you just have your phone set up on a tripod. As you can see here, the regular image stabilization on the S24 Ultra is pretty good. But if you want to take this to the next level, tap the super steady icon while you're in video mode in the camera app. This will make it look like your phone is on a gimbal. And when you compare it to no stabilization at all, it just blows my mind how incredible this is. If you tap the resolution in photo mode, you can switch to either a 50 or 200 megapixel photo. This is excellent for taking pictures of something like a map that you want to zoom in on later so you can see the words, or for a highly detailed scene where you want to be able to zoom in and see all the fine details later. And for reference, here's a zoomed in comparison to a 12 megapixel photo taken from the same position. If you long press on something in a photo, the phone will automatically cut that thing out. Then you can swipe across to another picture and drop it onto that picture. Then you can resize and reposition it and quickly create neat effects like duplicating yourself. Alternatively, you can long press on a subject, tap copy, then long press on another photo, and tap paste. And now I have 3 of me in the photo. If you'd like to send the cropped image to another application, then just continue to hold it with one finger, then use another finger to go to your home screen and navigate to another application, then you can drop it in that application. This also works for sending multiple images. Just select all the images you want to send, long press them, navigate to another application, and drop them in. And here's a bonus tip for quickly selecting a lot of photos. Just long press on the first photo till it's selected, then you can swipe up or down to select more or less photos. And even after you release your finger, you can then touch the screen and swipe again to deselect photos or select more of them. Just remember to swipe either from the right to the left or the left to the right, otherwise you'll just scroll up and down your images. You can take incredible star photos and time lapses like these on the Galaxy S24 Ultra. To take star photos, just open up the camera app, go to the More menu, then jump into the Expert RAW mode. It may ask you to download the Expert RAW mode the first time you try to open it, so just go ahead and download it, then you'll be able to get to this page. From here, tap this constellations icon in the upper right corner, and that'll put your phone into Astrophoto mode, and you can choose your capture time to be either short, medium, or long, depending on how dark it is. And you even get the option to show a star guide, which helps you aim your camera at specific constellations. To get a time lapse of the stars, you're going to want to go to the More menu, then select Hyperlapse. From here, you want to make sure your resolution is set to UHD for the best video. And at the top right, you want to change this from auto to 300 times. This is the specific mode you'll need for a star time lapse. And for the time lapse timer, I'd keep this set to infinity so that the camera doesn't stop taking the time lapse until you come and turn it off manually. If you choose any of these other options, the time lapse will stop after this amount of minutes. And this option here in the bottom right is for star trails. If this is white, star trails are disabled, and if it's yellow, star trails are on. And for reference, here's what a time lapse looks like without star trails turned on, and here's what it looks like with star trails turned on. That said, I personally recommend getting your video without star trails turned on because of this next feature I'm about to show you. If you took a time lapse of the stars, then you want to add star trails to that time lapse after the fact, all you have to do is swipe up on the time lapse, then you'll see this option pop up called Star Trails. If you tap this, it's going to add star trails to the time lapse. And in case you're wondering, this is what it looks like when you add star trails when the moon is in the time lapse. If you want to easily take a selfie, all you have to do is raise your hand in front of the camera, it'll start a timer, then take the selfie. And if you're wondering how I got multiple selfies to be taken with a single timer, stick around because I'll be showing you how to do that in a minute. There's a hidden camera menu that can only be downloaded from Samsung's Galaxy Store. Just search for an application called Camera Assistant, then install it. Once it's installed, go to your camera app, then tap the settings gear, Then scroll to the bottom, and you'll see a new option here called Camera Assistant, and this will unlock some really powerful camera settings. For starters, you can enable extra zoom shortcuts to 2x, 10x, and 100x zoom. And this is referring to these zoom shortcuts in both the photo and video mode. The only difference is that the video mode doesn't get the 100x zoom since that's just not an option for video. Auto HDR is on by default, and I recommend leaving it on because that helps you get better photos when there's really bright and dark areas in a single scene. Picture softening can help get rid of blemishes on your face. You can set this to medium or high, and here's a quick comparison with it turned off and on high. As you can see, some blemishes are removed at the cost of sharpness. High resolution settings are great if you take a lot of 50 or 200 megapixel photos. Adaptive Pixel allows the phone to group pixels together so you can get less noise and brighter images in low light conditions. And Upscale Digital Zoom uses software to increase the resolution of your photos when you're using digital zoom in the 50 to 200 megapixel resolution range. Quick Tap Shutter will allow you to get faster photos because the photo will be taken as soon as your finger touches the shutter button. But keep in mind, while this will give you faster photos, there's a higher chance for a blurry photo if you shake the camera when you tap the shutter button. Prioritize focus over speed is great if you notice that your photos often come out kind of blurry. However, this may add a slight delay when you tap the shutter button, so you'll be more likely to miss a shot if something's happening quickly. Timer Multiphoto is how I was able to get multiple pictures to be taken with a single timer. If you set the pictures section to more than one picture, then anytime you set a timer, your phone will automatically take however many pictures you selected with this many seconds between each of those photos. And this is a great way to get excellent group photos without having to run back and forth to the camera. And these last 6 options are professional level options. These only apply to people using the S24 Ultra for professional work, and if you're that type of person, you already know what all of this means. If you want to go from taking somewhat fast photos like this, to insanely fast photos like this, all you have to do is jump into the settings in the camera app, then tap Intelligent Optimization and switch it from maximum to minimum. However, this does come with a trade-off of turning off all the optimization for your photos, so I recommend keeping this set to either maximum or medium for most of your photos, and only switch it to minimum if you want to take pictures of fast-moving objects like maybe at a sporting event. And while we're here, you'll also want to make sure Scene Optimizer is enabled because this will give you better colors and contrast in your pictures. If you jump into your camera settings, you can enable Shot Suggestions, which gives you a little dot on the screen to help you line up your shots better. Just line the white dot up with the circle, and when it turns yellow, you'll know you have a great shot. But to get even better shots, I recommend scrolling all the way to the bottom, then back up just a little bit and enable something called Grid Lines. This will give you a 3x3 grid to help you line your shots up based on the rule of thirds. Simply put, if a single person's in your image, you don't want their face centered in the middle box. Instead, you want their eyes lined up with the top line. You could also put the person at one of these intersecting points, but make sure they're not facing away from the center of the frame, or the shot will look odd. Instead, have them face towards the camera or the center of the frame. When you're filming a video, you can get a much smoother zoom just by swiping across the zoom levels instead of tapping on them. If you're in photo mode and you zoom in to at least 30 times zoom, you get a white box in the corner. When this box turns yellow, it means stabilization has been activated to help keep the subject centered in the frame. This comes in tremendously useful for 100 times zoom photos. People often talk about the 100 times zoom capability on the Galaxy S24 Ultra, which is pretty good considering the fact that this photo was taken from all the way back here, and you can see the tower right there. And while this is a pretty good photo, not many people are going to be posting stuff like this to social media. But what people don't often talk about is how the 30 times zoom pictures are actually really usable. This is an ultra-wide photo of an animal sleeping in a little cave. And as you can see, it's hard to make out the detail. But if I switch to the 30 times zoom photo, that's just insane how good this looks. And this is totally worth posting to social media. You probably already knew that you could long press on the camera app to reveal some shortcuts, but you might not have known that you could long press on those shortcuts and drag those specific shortcuts onto your home screen for super fast access to those camera modes. And speaking of fast access to camera modes, if you long press the camera app icon again and instead tap widgets, you get a custom camera option. And if you add this to your home screen, you'll be able to choose which specific camera you want to use, whether it's the rear or the front, and choose from any of these camera modes. Not only that, but you can also choose which specific folders you want to save the photos and videos to. And if you really want to take this to the next level, you can create multiples of these widgets to different camera modes, then long press them and stack them on top of each other so that you can quickly swipe through your favorite camera modes and jump to exactly what you need. If instead of wanting fast access to your camera modes, you just want fast access to your favorite photos, just long press the gallery icon, then long press the favorites option and drag that out instead. Now if I tap this, it'll take me straight to my favorites. If you long press on an album, you can drag it onto another album and create a group. And once the group is created, you can tap that and see all the individual albums within a single group. And if you tap the plus icon while you're in the albums folder, you'll be able to create an auto-updating album. And once this is created, you'll be able to select any people that are in your photos, and when you tap done, it'll create an auto-updating album that automatically adds all of those people into that album. And it'll continue to add those people in on any new photos as well. The Galaxy S24 Ultra takes some incredibly bright night photos, and sometimes it may be a bit too bright. For example, here's a more accurate representation of how dark it was in this photo. So if you want a darker, more true-to-life night photo, just tap this moon icon to turn off night shot. There's a feature that lets you take a boring shot like this and make it look like this. To get to this feature, jump into the camera app, then the More menu, then Expert RAW, and tap the ND option. This is a digital ND filter that lets you take long exposure photos in bright environments. All you have to do is increase the ND strength anywhere from 2 to 1000, and also increase the speed setting to at least 2 seconds. If your photo comes out too dark, just decrease the ND strength a bit, and if it comes out too bright, just increase it a bit. You probably already knew that if you take the S Pen out while you're in the camera app, you can press the S Pen button to take a picture. But what you might not have known is that you can do a bunch of other things as well. For example, you can hold the S Pen button down and draw a clockwise circle to start zooming in, and it'll continue to zoom in until you release the button. Or you can hold the S Pen button down and draw a counterclockwise circle to start zooming out, again until you release the button. You can also switch camera modes by holding the S Pen button down and swiping either right or left. And you can even switch between the front and rear facing cameras by holding the S Pen button down and swiping either up or down, or by double pressing the S Pen button. And if you ever forget how to do any of these air actions, just hover your S Pen over the air command menu and you'll see all of the actions right there. If you open up your camera app and switch to photo mode and aim your camera at a QR code, you'll get a QR code link below it. And if you tap the up arrow, you can open the link directly, copy the link, or share the link with the usual sharing methods. This next thing is something you guys have been requesting for nearly a decade, and I finally did it. If you open up your camera app and scan this QR code, or follow the link in the description and pinned comment, you'll be taken to my official 70+ page deep dive S24 Ultra camera guide. This interactive PDF is complete with dozens of figures, pro tips, and did you know sections that go far deeper than this video. The guide is split into clear sections, and everything's hyperlinked and searchable so you can quickly find anything you want. Each feature also has a video demo hyperlink, which will take you to the specific part of this video where I show that feature in action. I spent literally hundreds of hours writing and producing this guide, and I guarantee you there is nothing else like it on the internet. I even have a free version with 20 of the features so you can get a feel of how the guide works before getting the full guide. And for just the next week, I have it on a massive launch sale before the price goes up. And both the free and paid guide also get you access to my exclusive monthly newsletter where I teach you more tips and tricks and hidden features that don't always make it into a dedicated video. If you appreciate guides like this and want to see more of them, or if you have any feedback on this guide, let me know in the comments down below. If you tap the More menu while you're in the camera app, then go to dual record mode, you'll be able to record with both the front and rear facing cameras at the same time. And that little preview can be moved around. You can also double tap it to shrink it down. And if you tap it again, you'll see a little minimize icon. And if you tap that, it'll completely minimize it so you can focus on what you're seeing. I'm going to go ahead and expand that again. And as I step into this Submarine, I'm going to point over to this other little menu here. If I tap this, you'll see that I'll be able to switch to any of the two cameras I'd like. Since this is a Submarine, it makes sense to stick with the ultra-wide camera and the front-facing camera. I almost just tripped right there. Be careful while you're filming in a Submarine. Now, another really cool part of this feature is that if I tap in this upper left corner, I can switch to a split-screen view. And if I tap this little rotate icon in the corner, I'll be able to switch side the previews are on. And when it comes to saving the video, If you tap this icon, you'll be able to save it as 2 separate video files, so you'll get the full resolution separate videos that won't be overlaid the way you see it now. But if I tap and go to the standard mode, that'll save it as it's previewed, which means when I play the video back, this little overlay is going to be on top of the video when I watch it. So this is a pretty cool feature that I highly recommend checking out, especially if you're doing some sightseeing and some cool things like a submarine. But what I don't recommend is trying to sleep in submarine bunks. These are super tiny. You can slow down just about any video in your gallery app just by long pressing on it. And on videos that were already filmed in slow motion, it'll make the video even slower. If you're a fan of slow motion video, you'll be happy to know that the Galaxy S24 Ultra now has the ability to go to UHD at 120 frames per second. On the Galaxy S23 Ultra, you're limited to Full HD at 240 frames per second. You may have noticed that the S24 Ultra doesn't have a super slow motion mode anymore, and that's because it got a massive upgrade. Instead of being limited to about 1 second of recording, you can now just film a 240 frame per second video for as long as you'd like. Then you can just navigate to the video, tap the edit icon, tap the 1/8 text, tap it again, then tap 1/32. That will give you a video that plays back at a whopping 960 frames per second. You're probably already familiar with the camera mode in the More menu called Single Take, which will automatically take a series of photos, videos, portrait photos, and more for about 10 to 15 seconds or until you stop the single take. But what you might not have known is that if you tap this icon in the upper right corner, you'll be able to choose which specific clips are captured. So if you don't like the boomerang clips, for example, you can just tap it and disable that type of clip. If you took a photo wider than you intended, you can just zoom in on that photo, then tap the photo, and you'll see this icon in the bottom left corner. If you tap this, it'll automatically create a cropped version of that photo at that size. And this even works for video. Just tap the video and pause it wherever you'd like, then tap this little icon in the corner, and it'll take a screenshot of the video at that point. If you swipe up on a photo in the gallery app, you'll see an option pop up called Remaster. If you tap this, your phone will automatically analyze the photo and adjust things like brightness and saturation to give you a better looking photo. Samsung introduced a brand new artificial intelligence called Galaxy AI with the S24 Ultra, and one of the most powerful features is found in the gallery app. If you tap the edit icon on one of your photos, then tap the generative edit icon, you'll be able to either tap on or draw around an object you want to select. If part of the selection is missed, you could just zoom in and tap in the area that you want to select. Now when I long press the selection, I'll be able to move it around, resize it, and even rotate it. And when you tap Generate, Galaxy AI will move the object and fill in the background. And if you tap View Original, you can see the before and after. Instead of moving objects around, you can also just tap this eraser icon and it'll completely delete the object from the image. And if you drag this slider on the bottom, you can rotate the image, and anything in the checkerboard area is automatically going to be filled in by Galaxy AI. And as you can tell, Galaxy AI gets pretty creative with what it adds. If you switch to video mode, then tap the camera settings, you'll see an option here called Tracking Autofocus. Once this is enabled, you can tap on an object that you're aiming your camera at, and the phone will automatically track and lock focus on that object, regardless of how fast it moves around the screen. While we're in the settings, if you tap Shooting Methods, you'll see an option called Floating Shutter Button that's off by default. What this does is add a floating shutter button onto your screen. And this makes it a lot easier to hold the phone while taking a picture without having to use something like a claw grip. And when you're done using the floating shutter button, just drag it down to the bottom and it'll disappear. When you need it later, you can just swipe back up. And speaking of swiping on the shutter button, if you swipe down, you'll take a burst photo with up to 100 photos. And if you look at your burst photos in the gallery app after you've taken them, you'll see an icon in the bottom left corner that tells you how many photos were taken. And if you tap that icon, you'll be able to scroll through all of the photos. By default, your phone will automatically pick what it thinks is the best photo, and it'll add a little crown to it. But if you prefer a different photo, just navigate to the other photo, tap the photo, then tap the crown icon. And now that will be set as the best shot. If you don't want to keep all of your burst photos, just tap the icon again, select the photos that you do want to keep, then tap this download looking icon right here, and tap the delete all unselected pictures option. Now when you tap save, it'll keep just the pictures you selected and delete the rest, freeing up a bit of storage space. The last thing you can do with a burst photo is tap these 3 dots in the upper right corner, then tap this GIF GIF option. And this will automatically create a GIF GIF out of the images. From here, you can also delete specific images, change the aspect ratio, change the speed of the playback, and you could even have it play forwards, backwards, or bounce back and forth. And you could also draw on it, add stickers to it, or add some text. If you handed someone your phone to take a picture, but you forgot to turn on portrait mode, you can just swipe up on the photo afterwards, then tap the background blur option. This will automatically add the background blur effect after you've taken the photo. If you tap these three lines in the bottom right corner of the gallery application, then tap Settings, you'll see an option at the top called Sync with OneDrive. This will automatically back up all your photos and videos with Microsoft OneDrive. So if you pay for extra OneDrive storage, this is definitely worth enabling. If you tap the Stories tab in the Gallery app, you'll be met with a bunch of AI-generated stories. And if you tap one of these, a video will play with all of the photos taken in a certain area. You can then swipe up on the story to see all of the pictures that are in it. Then you can tap the plus icon to add more photos and videos, or long press one of the images and remove it from the story. And in case you're wondering, you can create your own stories by tapping these three dots in the upper right corner and tapping Create Story. And if you see a story that you really like, you can tap this heart icon and it'll save it to your favorites. Now if I tap this heart on the top, I'll see all of my favorite stories. You can get up to 30 gigs of free cloud storage if you just tap these three bars in the bottom right corner, then tap Shared Albums, and create a shared family album. What this will do is get you an extra 5 gigs of cloud storage for each person you add, and that'll give you up to 30 gigabytes of free cloud storage. It also makes it a lot easier to share full resolution photos and videos with anyone in the group. If you notice that your skin tone isn't quite right when taking pictures, you can tap this effects icon, then tap color tone, and try switching it from natural to warm. If you switch to the Pictures tab in the Gallery application, then tap the three dots in the upper right corner, you'll see an option called Group Similar Images. If you tap this, it'll take any images that look similar and group them into one icon. Then when you tap it, you can tap to expand the group and see the rest of the similar images. And this just makes for a less cluttered way to view all your photos. If you tap the Settings gear in the Camera app, then scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see an option called Location Tags. And if you enable this, your phone will automatically add location information to every photo you take. And once you start taking photos and videos with location tags enabled, you can jump into your Gallery app and tap the search icon, and you'll be able to quickly find any of your photos based on where the photo was taken. You can do this by either tapping the photos on the map, or by tapping this little caret icon and selecting a town in the grid. And if you forgot to have location tags enabled when you already took a bunch of photos and videos when you were on vacation, you can select all the photos from that trip, tap the three dots in the corner, then tap Edit Location, and you can add a location to all of those photos at the same time. If you tap the pencil icon under a photo, then add some coloring effects to that photo, you can tap the three dots in the upper right corner and tap Copy Edits, then select a bunch of other photos, and tap the three dots again, then paste those edits to all of those other photos. If you took a picture of something and didn't realize that you may have caught some sensitive information in that image, like maybe a credit card number, then you go to share that image, you'll get a warning at the bottom telling you that the image may contain sensitive information. If you take a motion photo, you can tap the three dots in the upper right corner, then tap Export, and you see an option here to export the video. And what's awesome about this is that it even exports the audio.
Now that's a neat feature.
You can film at 8K resolution in 30 frames per second. This will give you the sharpest possible video that you could even zoom into afterwards and still maintain a ton of detail. And with the S24 Ultra, you can do this at both 1x and 5x optical zoom. And if you want to know how I was able to smoothly change focus from one object to another, stick around because I'll be showing you how to do that in a minute. If you go to the More section of your camera app and tap AR Zone, then tap the Quick Measure option, you'll be able to quickly take a measurement of an object in the real world by tapping the plus icon to mark each end of the object. And for reference, this table is actually 91 inches long when measured with a real tape measure. The Quick Measure tool will also give you the radius of a circle automatically when you aim the camera at the circle, or the dimensions of a rectangle, including the area. Just be aware that these measurements aren't always exact, so if you need precise measurements, use an actual tape measure. If you tap the More menu in the camera app, you'll get two different Pro modes. The first mode is just called Pro, and this is your Pro camera features. And this will give you manual control over things like your white balance, focus, exposure, shutter speed, and your ISO, which is pretty useful. But if you back out of here, then go back into the More menu and select Pro Video mode, this is where the magic happens. For starters, if I swipe up here and tap this zoom option, I can drag across this bar and slowly zoom in or out at a constant rate. Similarly, I can tap focus and drag the focus bar to slowly move focus from one object to another. And this is much more cinematic looking than tap to focus, which would just jump from one object to another. Tapping the mic option lets you choose between using a Bluetooth microphone, a USB microphone, or both a Bluetooth microphone and the built-in microphones as well if you use this Bluetooth mix option. And if you're just using the built-in microphones, you can choose to just record audio coming towards the rear of the phone, audio coming towards the front of the phone, or audio coming from any direction. And dragging this bar either increases or decreases the volume level. And of course, you get the settings you would expect to see like white balance, exposure, shutter speed, as well as ISO. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you get this little reset icon. And if you tap this, it'll reset all of your settings to the default settings. Something that's new for this year is that if you tap the resolution, you can now film at UHD at 120 frames per second in Pro Video mode. That means you could record slow motion videos while also being able to use all of these Pro features. And if you film at a lower resolution, you unlock this color tone option, and what this does is allow you to change the contrast, highlights, shadows, saturation, and tint all in real time, and it'll record the video with all of those effects applied. If you go to the More menu in the camera app, you'll see an option called Portrait Video. And what this does is add the portrait effect to video. And this actually works pretty well with the rear-facing cameras on the S24 Ultra. And for some perspective, here's what the video looks like with the effect turned off. And this even works with the front-facing camera. And if you tap this little icon here, you'll be able to see the other 4 blur modes and change the intensity of those modes with this slider on the side. And one really important thing to know about portrait video is that it doesn't always work perfectly, and you can't remove the effect once it's applied. So if you're going to film something really important, like a child's first birthday, I don't recommend using this mode. By default, if you want to zoom in on a video, you'll be limited to 20 times zoom. But if you want to zoom in even further, you can actually switch to photo mode, zoom in as far as you want, even all the way to 100 times zoom. Then all you have to do is hold the shutter button, and you'll automatically start filming a video for as long as you hold the button down. The only caveat is that you'll be limited to a 1920 by 1440 resolution video. And here's a quick bonus tip. If you're zoomed into less than 20 times zoom in photo mode, then you hold the shutter button, you'll get a lock icon that you could swipe up to, and that'll lock you into video mode. Then you can use all the different zoom levels just by tapping or swiping. But when you do this, you will be limited to a 20 times zoom. If you also own a Samsung laptop or tablet, and the tablet is at least on One UI 6.1, you can go to your quick toggles on both devices and make sure both of them have calls and text on other devices enabled. You can then swipe across your quick toggles on the tablet and you'll see an option here called camera sharing. If you tap that, you'll be able to use your S24 Ultra's camera as the webcam for your tablet or laptop. So if I open up the Zoom app here and start a new meeting, you'll see that I'm now using the front-facing camera on my S24 Ultra. But if I want to use the rear camera, I can just tap this switch camera option in Zoom, and that'll switch to the rear camera. And if at any point you want to stop sharing your camera, you can either just tap pause or end on your S24 Ultra, and that'll force the laptop or tablet to switch back to its camera. And one quick reminder, don't forget to check out my official deep dive PDF guide for the S24 Ultra's cameras by scanning this code here or by following the links in the description and pinned comment. And if you thought this video was helpful, you'll definitely want to click or tap here to check out my list of over 50 things you need to change on your S24 Ultra immediately. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications if you don't want to miss more deep dive videos just like this. That's it for this tech episode. God bless, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.